When we talk about hybrid and multi-cloud and also on-premise, it's very important to understand why this movement is taking place. In reality, the vast majority of the customers, they are still in this transition, and that's where hybrid is a key aspect because some of the resources are on-prem and some of the resources are in the cloud. You have even a percentage here based on some research that were done, revealing that 75% of the organization workloads will be in the cloud in the next year. So it's very important to prepare for this digital transformation, understanding that the technology that you adopt today should be relevant for both workloads in the cloud as well as on-prem. And when you are in this mix between cloud and on-prem, which you call the hybrid environment, very important. And for that, you need visibility. You need visibility to understand the secure state of those workloads and how they are distributed. And what are the top five things when it comes to multi-cloud? Well, we have multiple data here around things that we identify based on different researches. The first one is actually based on our own Microsoft DevOps report that showed that 54% of enterprise do not integrate security into the DevOps pipeline. This is a critical point because in the cloud, if you're provisioning things that are not secure by default, what's going to happen is that this is going to drop the security state of your workloads in production. So you're going to provision things that are not secure by default. So you need some sort of cloud security posture management to identify those workloads that are not secure and then address. But this is very reactive. What you really want to do is to include security in the beginning of your pipeline to ensure that you are provisioning things that are secure by default. But there is always scenarios as you start to onboarding more and more things where you will need to have some adjustments from the secure posture management perspective to understand, okay, there are new workloads in different clouds that I have to have visibility, understand how I can prioritize the secure hygiene of those workloads. So that's where we have the second pillar here, which is visibility in security and compliance. You need to have a platform that allows you to understand the current state of your environment and how to use those lessons learned to then incorporate those security aspects in the beginning of the pipeline. So in this case, 86% of survey security decision makers believe the cybersecurity strategy does not keep up with the multi-cloud environments. Multi-cloud environments introduce new challenges because now you need to have cross workloads and cross cloud visibility. And ideally, you want to do that from a single dashboard. Protect against increasing sophisticated attacks. So now that you've done the homework, which is the secure hygiene of your environment, you need to have active threat detection for your environment that were created based on the threat landscape of the different workloads. That's where we need to have a platform that is able to differentiate the threat landscape of, for example, a storage account versus a virtual machine, and understand also that if the virtual machine is running on-prem in Azure or in a different cloud provider, we need to have threat detection for that as well. And that's exactly where Microsoft Defender for Cloud comes into play because it offers all those capabilities that we are looking for in this digital transformation journey. We look at DevOps security management, cloud security posture management, and cloud work protection into a single package that we call Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So within one single dashboard, you are able to have the visibility that you need for all three major aspects, and also from the multi-cloud perspective, because you will have the secure posture management of your Azure, AWS, and GCP, and on-prem in one single dashboard. You're going to have threat detection for the different workloads that are in Azure, as well as AWS and GCP and on-premise. So it's very powerful tool that allows you to have this end-to-end solution for your digital transformation journey. Now I'm going to hand it over to Meital to talk about cloud secure posture management.
Thanks, Yuri, for the overview of the cloud security landscape and why Defender for Cloud is in a unique position to meeting the evolving challenges of cloud native security. I'm going to introduce Defender for Cloud Security Posture Management capabilities, and show how it can reduce risks in your multi-cloud environment with contextual insights. So what does better cloud security posture mean? And why do the existing tools and processes are not enough? Today, security teams are faced with three main problems when working to reduce the risk in their cloud platforms. First, how can they gain full and complete visibility of their cloud platform across different clouds and environments in an easy and frictionless way? Second, when faced with a massive number of issues and misconfigurations, how can teams distinguish which are the most critical risks exposing them to immediate threats? And finally, how can teams act fast and drive accountability in their organization to promptly remediate? Defender for cloud security posture management capabilities are incorporating powerful features that are specifically designed to address these key problems. Among them, the new agentless scanning capabilities provide full coverage across your environment to quickly identify vulnerabilities. A new intelligent cloud security graph and attack path analysis prioritizes your most critical risks based on potential lateral movement paths, and integrated compliance and governance tools enable your teams to drive compliance and remediation at scale. Let me share more about these capabilities, starting with agentless scanning. Today, Defender for Cloud provides deep visibility and real-time protection for your workloads using agent-based solutions and market-leading endpoint protection. We know that getting agents completely deployed on your workloads takes time, effort, and cooperation between security and application teams. In a dynamic cloud environment, it often does not end up covering all your estate quickly enough, leaving you with blind spots on potential security issues. Since no single approach is perfect, Defender for Cloud combines the breadth and depth of agentless and agent-based approaches. Agentless scanning provides you instant visibility over critical posture issues, while real-time protection agents complement it and go deeper and provide advanced detection, investigation, and response capabilities. Both are now seamlessly integrated and combined under the same platform. We are also continuing to expand our coverage for multi-cloud containers with the recent announcement of agentless vulnerability assessment scanning for your ECR images in AWS. With this new release, we are also introducing significant improvement to our scanning interval, moving to a 6 hours rescan cadence and scanning of new images within 1 hour. The findings are available in Microsoft Defender for Cloud as security recommendations, and customers can use our built-in automated workflows to take different actions, such as opening a ticket for fixing a high-severity vulnerability in an image. Another important innovation we are introducing is the Cloud Security Graph. The Cloud Security Graph is a new graph-based context engine in Defender for Cloud. It collects data about your multi-cloud environment from numerous amount of data sources, such as the cloud asset inventory, connections between resources, exposure to internet, permissions, vulnerabilities, and much, much more. Then it models this data as a graph of interconnected cloud assets. In addition, Defender for Cloud collects into the graph unique and important signal from Defender EASM. Generally, digital assets such as hosts, websites, applications, domains, and contents are not directly managed or controlled by the customer. However, these assets define our customer's external attack surface and enrich the cloud security graph and all the insights based on it. Using our new attack path analysis capabilities, Defender for Cloud scans the graph and detects exploitable paths hackers can use in order to breach your environment. It helps you mitigate them and prevent future breach. Let's take an example to better understand how it works. Imagine that your security team is on a critical mission to patch an emerging vulnerability which can be exploited by hackers. Until today, when entering Defender for Cloud, they would get a list of thousands of infected machines. and need to chase one by one to reduce risk. But what if we could tell you that from all of these thousands of machines, only dozens are actually exposed to the internet, and that only a few are also allowing lateral movement to critical assets? You would immediately patch these few and reduce the risk of compromise dramatically. This is what attack path analysis is helping you do. Now, let's talk about compliance, which we know is also a critical part of a strong cloud security posture. And so we're excited to announce the public preview of new regulatory compliance features in Defender for Cloud, so customers can easily take charge of their compliance posture and navigate evolving regulatory demands. Starting this October, with a new compliance offerings feature, customers can track certifications achieved by Azure, Dynamics 365, and Power Platform services. For example, partners and customers can now easily check which Microsoft services have HIPAA, ISO, FedRAMP, or any other certification prior to building their solution on top of our platform. Also new to the compliance experience is the Microsoft Cloud Security Benchmark. Building off of the Azure Security Benchmark and leveraging Microsoft Threat Intelligence and industry-leading researchers, this multi-cloud benchmark moves beyond generalized compliance frameworks. Controls are mapped to major regulatory industry benchmarks, such as CIS, PCI, NIST, and more, and cloud-specific implementation tools are turned on by default to meet requirements in each cloud. Leverage Microsoft's cloud security best practices and monitor your cloud security compliance posture per cloud in a single integrated dashboard. As a reminder, Microsoft is a cloud provider with the largest number of certifications in the industry. Now, after finding the riskiest issues, it's time to remediate. The recently announced security governance features allow security admins to drive remediation at scale across the organization by implementing policy, assign rules, and run remediation campaigns throughout the entire team. As you can see, Defender Cloud Security Posture Management leverages comprehensive, contextual, aware technologies to help security teams reduce risks in their multi-cloud and hybrid environment. With that, I will hand over to Yuri for the introduction of Microsoft Defender for Cloud's cloud workload protection capabilities.
All right, Meital, thank you very much for giving this explanation about CSPM, Cloud Security Posture Management. Let's dive into more details about cloud workload protection and what that really means. We have threat protection across all layers for cloud and on-prem. And the way that we look at this threat detection is based on multi-cloud agentless threat detection. So we offer alerts that were created based on the analytics that our researchers put together for the different workloads. As I've mentioned in the beginning, it's important for you to have the realistic idea about the attack vectors of each workload, which means that the threat actor that is trying to get into your database will not use the same techniques and strategies that it used for a storage account or for your VM. So we need to understand the threat landscape for each workload, and that's what we do with this capability, as well as mapping to the MITRE ATT&CK framework. By mapping all our threat detection to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, we allow you to have a visualization of the different phases of this framework, which means that you can prioritize remediating alerts that were triggered in the beginning of the action of the cyber queue chain from the attacker perspective, which means that the attacker is in the beginning of the intrusion. You'll be able to take actions for that. You'll be able to receive alerts as the threat actors navigate through the different phases, because we map all those phases, which allows you to have a better instant response, because you're going to be able to react accordingly with the phase that the threat actor is in at that point in time. So it's very important to have this mapping. The other thing that we have baked into our platforms is threat intelligence. Our threat intelligence take advantage of many signals coming from different places, from the different platforms that we have at Microsoft, and allows you to have a more certainty that an alert is a true positive. So we eliminate a lot of false positive based on this threat intel. And when we present an alert, there is a higher probability that this is a true positive and you should take actions immediately to address that alert. Very important to have this information as part of your threat detection capacity. We have also vulnerability management, which is also something important to ensuring that you are preventing threat actors to take advantage of known vulnerabilities that are available. We allow you to quickly identify those vulnerabilities across the different workloads and then take actions to remediate those vulnerabilities. Alert correlation is another powerful capability. If you think about how threat actors they operate, they usually execute multiple commands to get into the target resource. It could be a VM, it could be a storage account, but the reality is there are multiple actions that are done before the threat actor accomplish the mission. For security analysts that are trying to investigate an alert, it's very challenging to go alert by alert. So you need to have some sort of correlation to understand that these alerts, they are separately, but they are part of the same attack chain. So with the alert correlation, we are able to give a single visualization of all the alerts that are part of the same attack chain. We call this a secure incident. It's part of our fusion capability that combines all the alerts. So very important and powerful capability. Here, something that I want to emphasize, because while all those slides are interesting, it's very interesting for you to have a quick visualization of the dashboard experience. You have one dashboard for workload protection that gives you some analytics about where the plans are enabled, a quick visualization about the secure alerts based on severity of the alerts, and also the advanced protection capabilities that are enabled on your subscription. We have also the capability to integrate with your same platform. And if you are using Microsoft Sentinel, you are one click away from streaming all those alerts from the Defender Cloud to Sentinel. That way, if you are using Sentinel, for example, you can create a lot of automation in Sentinel to take actions based on those alerts that you receive from the Defender Cloud. So that's very important because the idea is always to react fast. You want to receive an alert, take an action, and then contain the threat actor to potentially expand and continue the intrusion. So that's why it's so important to combine those two things. But if you are not using Microsoft Sentinel, you can also ingest those alerts to a different SIEM platform. Secured alerts and incidents. This is the screen that has an example of a suspected brute force attack attempt. As you can see, there is a lot of information on the alert description. There is also the alert details with all the data about that particular alert, what truly happened that caused that alert, the related entities, in other words, what entities are involved on that alert, which includes the account, the host, the IP address. So there is a lot of threat intelligence baked into this as well. The MITRE attack tactics, you can see in the bottom, the corner of the page, where you have that this is part of the pre-attack phase. So the threat actor is actually in the beginning of the intrusion, is trying to perform a brute force. And this is a suspected brute force, which means that the threat actor did not get through yet, but you already have the visibility that you need to then take actions to prevent this attack from continuing. So that's very powerful set of information that you have there. And there is another tab called Take Action right after the alert details, where you can see suggested options for you to remediate and investigate this alert. This is just a brief example of the full stack of threat detection that we have in Defender for Cloud. As I mentioned, it's very important that the workloads, they have their own set of analytics, because the threat landscape for Azure SQL database is not the same as Amazon EKS. So we take the time to develop the analytics based on the reality of the threat landscape nowadays, and we keep increasing those analytics as we learn about new attacks. We continue to feed in, but this gives a perspective about the different layers: compute layer, service layer, which include even Azure Resource Manager, database and storage, AWS workloads, GCP workloads, and on-premise workloads. We have threat detection across all those workloads. Now let's get some of those workloads as an example so we can dive into a little bit more details. The first one is Microsoft Defender for Servers. Now, Microsoft Defender for Servers is a capability that we have that allows you to onboard and protect IaaS VMs as well as on-prem VMs or VMs that are in a different cloud provider. And those VMs could be Windows or Linux. So we do have threat detection available for both capacities, both operating systems. So we have that. We also coverage managed service in Amazon EC2 and Google Compute Engine. We have agentless scan capability that allows you to quickly, as you onboard the machine, give you some hardening capabilities built in the platform. Hardening is very important because it's part of your preventative measure. If you want to increase your security posture, it's not only about threat detection. It's about improving the security hygiene. And how you improve the security hygiene? You apply secure best practice, you harden your resources. So this plan also gives you all the hardening and capabilities and allow you to customize as well. Is optimized for different cloud environments and has baked in features that are very peculiar to IaaS VMs. For example, just-in-time VM access. Just-in-time VM access is very important because as you provision a new virtual machine in the cloud, the idea is that you only use that virtual machine when it comes to remote access management via RDP or SSH if you are using Linux. You should only use that if you need to, right? You will not allow those ports to be widely open in the internet, okay? Because it becomes a risk. You are allowing management ports to be widely open all the time. That's not ideal. So just-in-time VM access basically says it will be closed, and when you need to open those ports, you ask access, and I'm going to give you a specific time frame for you to access those machines, which means those ports. So we have that. We have file integrity monitoring, adaptive network hardening, and adaptive application control. Both adaptive capabilities, they use machine learn to understand more. For example, adaptive application control use machine learning capability to understand which applications you should allow to run on a specific workloads and which ones you should not. We should actually block because they are malicious, for example. So it's an intelligent way to hardening your applications. Same thing for adaptive network hardening is machine learn based capability that allows you to harden network ports. The other plan that we have was created based on this rise of containers. There is a huge boom of containers utilization across the market, and that's because we have such a unique capability in containers that organizations want to utilize that. So there is some studies here, for example, that says that Kubernetes use in production has increased in 83%. The use of containers production increased by 300% between 2016 and 2020. So it's really picking up the adoption. And guess what? Threat actors love that because threat actors, you want to use this compute power mainly for crypto mining attacks. So that's another thing that you have to think about. While containers extremely utilized, threat actors will also be utilizing that. So there is also another important thing about containers is that you can customize a lot of those provisionings in the beginning of the pipeline. And as companies are shifting left, you see the growth of this more and more. And threat actors also take advantage of that. There are two examples here, SolarWinds and Log4j, that leverage this scenario. So what Microsoft Defender for Container actually provides is the hardening capability, ensuring that you are secure by default and you elevate the secure hygiene of those containers. It allows you to have also vulnerability management capability, understand exactly what those containers have as far as known vulnerabilities and how to remediate. We have advanced threat detection, again, threat detections that were created specifically for that scenario, and multi-cloud capability. So you can have containers in AWS or GCP, we will support that. Last but not least, deployment in a very frictionless motion, because the auto onboard capability that we have in Defender for Cloud allows you to quickly deploy what is necessary for us to be monitoring those containers. Let's navigate to another workload, which is also top of mind, storage. There is a huge growth in storage. And again, everything that is growing utilization also means that threat actors will go after. And the main scenarios, the main risks around storage are malware upload, data exfiltration, and cloud ransomware. So there are three major challenges that we mapped in this storage capacity that are creating the needs to have anti-malware for storage, data classification and understanding of the data so you can protect, and also ways to avoid or mitigate the possibilities of getting compromised by a cloud ransomware. So with Defender for Storage, we have alerts, threat detection, that we will give you details about the potential attempts to compromise. For example, if your storage is exposed to the internet and someone is trying to scan that storage, we have threat detection for that. But the good thing is, as we provide hardening mechanisms, you should not even have a storage account exposed to the internet, because we will trigger a secure recommendation for you to close that storage account even before it gets compromised. So we have recommendations, alerts, and all that leverage our threat intelligence for your own benefit. All the plans are pretty straightforward when it comes to enablement. You just click and enable on the subscription level without side effects in production, because this is basically flipping a switch to say, go ahead and start monitoring my workload, and that's it. We will start monitoring your workload and trigger the necessary threat detections as we see happening. Okay. The advantage of plans like Defender for SQL is that you have different visualizations. You have the persona of the security administration that will use Defender for Cloud dashboards to visualize the recommendations and threat alerts. But the database owner also has visibility of those recommendations and alerts from the database dashboard specifically. So if they are used to use the SQL dashboard in Azure, they will be able to click in security, and there they will see the recommendations and alerts. So we customize the visualizations with the same insights, but according to the persona.
Thanks, Yuri, for that intro into Defender for Cloud capabilities inside of cloud workload protection. Let's go ahead and transition now into the DevOps space. And this is where we're unifying security management to be inclusive of DevOps. So let's talk a little bit about the problem area and the key pain points that we're hearing from our customers. Security teams are struggling with this fragmented view and sometimes a complete lack of visibility into their DevOps environments. We see a disconnected set of security tools. They're not equipped to keep pace with developer velocity. We've got a multitude of DevOps platforms that are being used within the organization, and a growing divide between development and security teams who are operating in silos. This net result is security teams are grappling with an overwhelming volume of security issues in production, and we're introducing a new solution to help address these pain points. Defender for DevOps is empowering security teams with a unified view. This is across source code management, pipelines, and clouds. We're doing this in 3 specific ways. We want to unify visibility for your security posture. This means combining results from multiple DevOps environments into a single view. We're also strengthening cloud resource configs. This is throughout the development lifecycle. We want to look at infrastructure as code templates, container images, all with the intent of minimizing these misconfigurations from ever reaching production. Lastly, we want to do this in an intelligent way. This is all about contextualized insights from code to cloud, helping developers and security teams prioritize the most critical code fixes. So let's dive into each of these pillars in a little more detail. To start, we must provide visibility into this fragmented view. Security admins can now see those runtime assets alongside their DevOps inventory. This is all within Microsoft Defender for Cloud. Defender for DevOps is providing several key dimensions. First, with automated discovery, we focused on tools that developers love in GitHub and ADO, and they are seamlessly integrated into MDC. This is helping produce more productive interactions. With multiple source code management systems today, we have more that we'll build over time. We're enabling a combined view of inventory across your DevOps security estate. For assessment, we're continually providing DevOps hardening recommendations. This means we've expanded your compliance view to also include DevOps environments. And lastly, for security insights, we're able to manage DevOps security across code, dependencies, secrets, IAC, and containers. We're allowing flexible reporting through workbooks that's catering to the needs of the CISO and your AppSec teams. With this visibility, you can now move into strengthening. With the growth and adoption of cloud-native architectures, including infrastructure as code, developers are faced with an increased security responsibility. Without real-time and in-context feedback on security issues, developers struggle to secure cloud resources in their code. Meanwhile, security teams are overwhelmed by the nature and volume of cloud misconfigurations that could have easily been prevented pre-deployment. With IAC scanning, we're extending this rich set of best practices that are compiled and manifested in our Azure Security Benchmark. This is extended now to DevOps, and we apply these checks within your code. This powerful scanning capability is also extending all the way to IDE through Visual Studio Code, where developers are getting detailed guidance on how to fix a misconfiguration to the line of code itself. Our IAC offering is supporting Azure, AWS, and GCP deployments. Scanning is available across ARM, Bicep, Helm, CloudFormation, and Terraform templates. Our last pillar is all about driving greater security outcomes through insights. Security teams must respond to critical incidents across an entire cloud app lifecycle, but they do so with a fragmented view of security. And in many cases, they're manually constructing the business risk context in order to detect and respond swiftly to suspicious or unexpected activities. With code to cloud contextualization, we're adding application code insights into the new cloud security graph. So you can quickly identify, for example, an OSS vulnerability or a secret in source code right within MDC. We're also enabling stronger collaboration between security and development teams by creating workflow that feeds directly from MDC into the dev environments. So one example here is the ability to decorate a pull request with critical details about the security issues and related fix. This speeds up the time to remediate, removes friction for developers, and limits overall risk in the cloud. To recap, the journey really begins with visibility. We must pull through those scanning results from code, dependencies, secrets, containers, and more, and incorporating these once siloed results now as a part of your overall security posture. For infrastructure as code, we're starting with a strong multi-cloud position, covering ARM, Bicep, Terraform, CloudFormation, and more. For contextualization, we know that code scanning results are only one part of the story. They must be meaningfully connected to the rest of your environment. And this is so you can focus, again, on the most critical issues. Lastly, with integration, we know that DevSecOps is a team sport, and we know that enabling developers and security teams to work more productively together, we have to have a shared view of security priorities and work in a shared context. So let's go show you how this works. All right, so let's start with a demo for cloud security posture first. Let's say I'm a security admin for Contoso Hotels. I'm going to start with the Defender for Cloud dashboard. And as you can see, my overview page is helping me understand my current cloud security posture. This is across Azure, AWS, and GCP deployments. It's also providing me with an at-a-glance view of critical areas, my cloud security compliance against industry standards, a full resource inventory, and a summary of my workload protection coverage. On the right, you can see I'm tracking vulnerability updates that are powered by Microsoft's threat intelligence researchers. My first priority is security of my organization, and I can see that Defender for Cloud is continually assessing 3,300 resources across my environment and generated thousands of security recommendations. I want to get a more detailed view of my recommendations, so I'm going to select Active Recommendations and learn more. Here I can see there are key recommendations that are grouped across a number of areas, including identity, permissions, endpoint protection, and now vulnerability management. Defender for Cloud's new agentless scanning capabilities are providing full visibility and coverage across your environment. This provides a software inventory and prioritized vulnerability assessments, all without needing to deploy or maintain agents, which saves you time. Defender for Cloud is now one of the only solutions to provide both breadth and depth. From breadth, we get the visibility of agentless scanning, and for depth, we have endpoint protection of agent-based scanning. So let's take a look at what we mean specifically by breadth. In the Remediate Vulnerabilities tab, I can see that a top recommendation is a large group of resources with unresolved vulnerabilities. I want to click and learn more. Here I can see that I have hundreds of high-severity CVEs. Now, these are found across hundreds of scanned Azure VMs and AWS EC2 instances. Clicking on any of these resources is going to show a detailed view of the specific issues. But as an admin, faced with thousands of recommendations, I want to focus on resolving my most critical risks. So let's go back to this Recommendations tab. To help me quickly focus on the most critical security recommendations, Defender for Cloud has added a new attack path analysis tool. Let's take a look at one of them and learn more. In here, I see top attack paths mapped with their affected resources. Now let's click on one of these attack paths and learn more. Here it looks like I have a virtual machine. It's got high severity vulnerabilities, but it's also exposed to the internet. It's allowing remote code execution, and it has access to a sensitive key vault. I can click on the node to learn more about this internet exposure and details on the related vulnerabilities, which helps me take action faster. Now let's take a look at how Defender for DevOps helps mitigate risk from code to cloud. We're going to head back to this main Defender for Cloud dashboard and click on this new DevOps Security Blade. In this Defender for DevOps view, you can begin by setting up connectors. To save time, I've gone ahead and completed connectors for both GitHub and ADO. Defender for DevOps is supporting multiple DevOps platforms and more support coming soon. As you can see, currently we have one connector each from GitHub and Azure DevOps. Let's explore what shift left looks like for GitHub. The goal is to prevent cloud misconfigurations from being deployed. Since I've already completed the onboarding of the GitHub connector and the GitHub action, let's head over to the recommendations page. Moving over to view all recommendations, I see numerous critical issues and lots of resources that are marked as unhealthy. As a security admin, this is a lot to deal with. By using integrated capabilities of Defender for DevOps, I can reduce the volume of security issues by shifting left and fixing these issues in the developer workflow. Now let's focus on a fairly common and heavily exploitable misconfiguration, FTPS should be required in web apps. I'll start by going to GitHub to look at my workflow deployments, where I set up a GitHub action for my Defender for DevOps tools. This is going to scan any infrastructure as code templates that get committed to a repo. Now let's go take a look at pull requests. I see several pull requests for apps that are hosted across Azure, AWS, and GCP. For now, let's focus on this Azure workload. Defender for DevOps has found some IAC misconfigurations in this PR. Remember that recommendation we saw when we were over in Defender for Cloud? It said the FTPS should be required in web apps. Here it is. The developer can now see the exact place in the code and resolve the issue. Through the integration of Defender for DevOps with GitHub Advanced Security, developers see the same recommendation in their tools as security admins are seeing in Defender for Cloud. There's no need to switch between consoles. So now that you've seen how we can shift left into the pipeline, let's shift even further left. Switching to the developer's IDE, in this case Visual Studio Code, you can see how we empower developers to fix these issues even earlier. Switching to the developer's IDE, in this case Visual Studio Code, you can see how we empower developers to fix these issues even earlier. First, notice that the developer has installed the GitHub pull request and issues extension in their Visual Studio Code IDE. This is going to allow them to interact with the pull request information without having to leave the IDE. So now let's go back to Visual Studio Code. Let's open the IAC workload project. Select the folder and open that web deployment JSON file with all my IAC templates and scroll down. As I scroll down, I notice that the exact same recommendations appear inline in this IDE as what we saw in the Defender for Cloud console. That recommendation about FTPS is right there. The developer can see the line of code that needs to be fixed and can click to see more details on how to fix it, again without having to switch tools. Now the developer can address the issue and submit another pull request. We just prevented that issue in code so that it never reached production. Now let's go back to my security operators view in Defender for Cloud. Now that the developer has submitted that pull request and fixed the issue, you can notice that that pesky FTPS recommendation is showing all healthy. Now that's the power of shift left. You can prevent issues in code before they reach the cloud and reduce overload on your teams. Thanks for your time today. Yuri, back to you.
All right, Karen, thank you very much for talking about Defender for DevOps. So let's wrap up this presentation with some additional resources that you can use. You can go to our documentation page to learn more about Microsoft Defender for Cloud, and there you're going to find details about each plan. We also have Microsoft Defender for Cloud book that I wrote in partnership with my friend Ton. It is on Microsoft Press website. You can enable trial subscription of your Azure accounts to try out Azure and enable the trial version of each plan. Each plan has 30 days trial, so you can enable the plan, test out, perform a proof of concept of the main scenarios, and start working. And if you want to try the product, there is also a hyperlink there for you to try the product. So thank you very much for your time. I hope you enjoy the show, and go ahead and try Microsoft Defender for Cloud.